Hello there. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Whitney Bateson, and we are going to be doing just a little bit of a life update, business updates, just a casual episode today, keeping it light and talking about a few things that if you are a listener to the podcast, you heard me talk about my plans to move to Germany. So I have been a digital nomad for many years. And I was planning with my husband to finally settle down somewhere, at least for a little bit, to get residence and settle ourselves, establish ourselves in a little bit away, and also allow us to stay longer in Europe. Because for anyone who does travel a lot like us, you know that for most of us, any of us US passport holders, as well as Canadians and a lot of others, the Schengen zone in Europe prevents us from being able to spend more than 3 months in all of Europe and at any one time. And that just makes it really challenging because there are so many amazing countries to go to in Europe, obviously. And it's tough to really hit all the ones you want to hit in just 3 months, and then you have to leave completely. So we were trying to find a way to get around that, but by actually getting a residence permit in one of the Schengen countries. However, it proved to be a little bit more than we bargained for and wanted. So that's spoiler alert, big life update. We are not moving to Germany. We are not pursuing a residence permit here, nor anywhere else, at least for the time being. So I want to share a little bit about what went into that decision, what we uncovered in the process, and what our travel plans actually are for the rest of the year, just in case you're interested. I know it's weird because sometimes I'm like, does anyone really care? But at the same time, I love hearing about what other people are doing. So I'm sharing it just because maybe you're interested. And if you're not, it's okay. I will also be giving a little bit of an update on what I'm working on in the business right now, some of the things that I'm thinking about, in case those are things that might be interesting to you as I start rolling some new things out, and even just thinking about what to focus on the podcast and the topics that you want to be hearing about. And if anything that I say resonates with you, please let me know. Shoot me a DM on Instagram at Whitney Bateson. You can shoot me an email. You can send it. Probably the best one is info@whitneybateson.com. That's a great way to get in touch with me. Let me know what you want to hear me talking about. If there's anything that I'm talking about that you're like, yeah, I wish you would just focus more on this, let me know about that too. It's really helpful to get that feedback. All right, so let's just first talk about the living situation. So basically, what happens when you become or plan to become a resident in another country that is not your primary citizenship country? There's different things you have to think about. Mainly, what visa is going to allow you to stay in that country from an immigration standpoint, and then what are the tax implications of you becoming a resident in that country. So while those two things are not linked together, there are countries and places where you can extend your visa and you can stay in that country for a long time. You can get a digital nomad visa. You can be there for periods of 3 months, 6 months, year, maybe even more years. The other side of that, though, is that in most countries, if you are physically present in that country for more than 6 months, and give or take 183 days, some of them say on a calendar year, some on a fiscal year. So this is just really broad strokes. But if you're physically present in a country for that long, then you become a tax resident. And from what I've gathered, they're not all coming after you. Not every country, if you get a digital nomad permit or visa, are you then going to be subjected to their taxes? But for a lot of people and countries, yeah, if you are staying in that country for 6 months and becoming a resident, then you also need to pay taxes there. And so that's just a whole nother level and layer of it. So when we were looking at Germany, our preliminary research didn't uncover too many red flags when it came to taxes. However, as we continued to dig into what we were pursuing, so we were going to pursue the freelance visa. And actually, Dylan, my husband, was going to be the primary visa holder because also in Germany, marketing freelancers are not really eligible for the freelance visa. You have to do the self-employment visa, which is a whole nother set of paperwork and a little bit more difficult. So we were going to do it with Dylan because he's IT. IT is better for the freelance visa. But then as we were uncovering things, we were also finding something else. So for many of you, you are business owners. And the other layer that you have to bring into this is if you have your business established in another country, which of course, if you started your business, if you're a US citizen, it's a US business. If you suddenly start living in another country and de facto running that company, your company from that country may say, actually, this is now a German-run company. It's your place of effective management, I think is what they call it. So if your company maybe has a lot of people in your home country and you are not necessarily the main person running the company, then maybe you can get out of it. But for most of us, we are our businesses. And so if I'm in Germany and I'm running the company from Germany, then basically it is a German-run company. And then that opens up a whole new can of worms in terms of, okay, now my company is being taxed by both the United States and by Germany potentially. And all of these things also come into, okay, yeah, there's maybe some ways that you can get around some of these things. You can, and we were working with some advisors on things that we could do to try and mitigate some of these risks. The problem is that they're still there. The risks are still there. It is still possible. And for us, we just felt that the risks were too high and the potential cost implications were too high as well. So there were almost three things going on. There was like the visa itself, which also was proving to be a little difficult. And we also started finding that it actually might be easier for Dylan to go after a blue card. But then that was a whole nother set of things. And then the business ownership thing was actually being pretty problematic to be moving to a country and still owning a US-based business. And then we started uncovering more nuanced tax implications than we had originally thought. So there's various things in countries. There's, of course, the income tax. There's the tax on assets and capital gains, taxes on gifts if you receive gifts from your family, and inheritance. And then there's also taxes on wealth. And every country handles this a little bit differently. You will see sometimes countries saying, oh, there is no wealth tax. But then when you dig into it, there is some tax on assets. But like, for example, I think in Italy, in some places, and definitely in Spain, they take a percentage of your entire worth and your wealth. And if you've been saving for retirement and you're getting close to that time when maybe you want to slow down working or maybe even stop working, and my husband is semi-retired, and so we do have savings, we have investments, and we have assets, and we're very proud of the work that we put in to get those and accumulate those. And then to go to a country and have 2% taken off of that nest egg every year when we're not planning even to maybe fully live in that country for the rest of our lives, that is a tough pill to swallow. So there's the wealth tax. Then there's also exit tax. So like I said, we're probably not planning to live in these countries in perpetuity, and we may not want to be tax residents in them forever. And so then you would exit the country and you would stop being a tax resident. Every country is a little bit different in terms of how easy or hard that is and whether they will actually tax you as you exit that country and exit their tax system. And Germany doesn't have an exit tax per se, blanket, but then they just passed some legislation to tax certain assets. And as I was researching it, I was like, that would apply to us. So honestly, it was just like the hits kept coming, and it was really stressful. It was probably one of the most stressful periods, I think, for Dylan and I, because we came here in early April. We had visited family in the United States. We immediately got sick as soon as we got here. I think we caught some stuff from the kiddos that we visited, and we were sick for 3 weeks straight. And the clock was ticking because we only did have 3 months on our visa to be here in Germany. And so we needed to, and we had tried to do some planning ahead of time, obviously, and doing some research and stuff. Tax people not getting back to us, and us just having other life and business and all of that coming into play. We just didn't get all of the answers that we needed. So then when we got here and then we were sick, and then we finally started really, okay, let's move this forward. Let's make sure though that everything is good. And then it wasn't, and it was just, oh man, it was really stressful. So I was spending like 6 hours a day working on this, trying to figure out if we could work it out, transfer business ownership to other family members. What would it look like to establish our businesses here? But because we weren't looking at this as being a permanent home forever, and the fact that the timeline because originally our goal was to get the visa and then get citizenship and have second citizenship. Obviously, that would be amazing. Not obviously. For us, we see that as that would be amazing for us to have citizenship in another European country and a very strong passport and a strong country and strong economy and all of that. And that would have been really nice. But then the timeline that it would have taken and the cost related to it, and there were other costs that kept popping up into the equation too. For example, Germany requires really comprehensive, expensive health insurance here, and like over $900 or euros a month. And that was a cost that we weren't thinking about either. And that would be for each of us. So that's a significant cost. And if you're going to remain a resident, you have to have that cost. So anyway, all of that to say that you can never have all the answers. Do your research. This was a lesson for us that we need to thoroughly research countries even more than we originally planned. We research. We are very cautious with a lot of things, and that's why we didn't move forward, is because we just didn't feel that we actually had all the answers that we thought we needed, and that things were much more complicated than they appeared on the surface. And I think that's one of the things that's happening too, obviously, with the way the world is, especially in the United States. And there are people considering moving to other countries and looking at other things. And I think there's a lot of people online talking about, oh, it's easy to move to Portugal, or it's easy to move to Italy or Spain and do these things. And I just want to caution everyone to just remember that every person's situation is so unique, especially financially. And it's important to protect the assets that you have. Even if you're just getting started in saving for retirement and building a small investment portfolio, you want to protect that. And U.S. citizens continue to pay taxes to the United States always and forever until you decide to exit the United States and rescind your citizenship, and you will be taxed when you leave the United States as well. So most people don't do that. And I think that's something to keep in mind, that other countries will allow you, if you're not there anymore, they won't tax you and you can come back. And that's not the case with the United States. There are some things that I've shared in the past on the podcast, like the foreign earned income exclusion, that we take advantage of to reduce our income taxes that we pay at a federal level in the US, but we are still paying the Social Security, Medicare, and capital gains and those kinds of taxes and whatnot. So we are still being taxed. So we really don't want to also add on more taxes. And yes, there are tax treaties and all of that, but you have to look at all the fine print because it just isn't always one for one. So this is something that we geek out on quite a bit, Dillard and I, in terms of researching countries and looking to see if there is another country out there in the world that would be a good fit for us to have a second citizenship or residence permit. We have not found that right place yet. We are continuing to research, but it's a tough one because it is that nexus of all of those different things. What does it look like from an immigration standpoint, a business owner standpoint, and then a tax standpoint as well. So I guess the message is just do your research. And so what we're going to be doing, instead of settling in one place, we are going to continue to be moving around for the time being and just assessing where we go from here and what we want to do. We did find potentially, and I almost don't want to share about it because we haven't validated that this works, and I don't want to jinx it, but we have found that there might be some way that we can stay longer in certain European countries past the 90-day Schengen rule. So I will let you know. I'm going to leave you with a little cliffhanger if we were able to make that work. So our plan and hope is that we're actually here for another 3 months. And then we are going to head over to Latin America. We're going to start in Mexico and probably do 6 months in Latin America and starting in Mexico, and then move down into South America and probably do Brazil for about 3 months or 4 months. And then by that time, the weather will be getting better in Europe. And then we will be able to come back and see if we can stay, hopefully another 6 months in Europe, again, seeing if some of these other strategies will work. And so that's probably what we'll continue doing for the time being, is we just try and spend about 6 months out of the year more in the European continent, and then move over to the Americas, more in Central Mexico's North America still, but Latin America and in South America for the European Northern Hemisphere winter. And then eventually still trying to see, can we have a place where we can come back to more regularly, have a home that we come back to, have doctors that we can come back to, have friends that we can come back to, all of those kinds of things. So that's still the goal. It remains that way, but we're just going to have to wait a little bit longer and do a little bit more research. So that's what's going on life-wise. And if you ever have any questions about moving to another country, starting a digital nomad lifestyle yourself, I'm always such an open book about that. So shoot me an email, shoot me a DM on Instagram. I personally still am a big proponent of the moving around. If you move every 3 months, that is only moving 4 times a year, which I guess if you've been living in the same apartment for 5 years, that feels really crazy. But to me, I'm like, man, that's nothing. And that's only 4 countries. In some places, you can stay for 6 months. In Mexico, you can stay as a US citizen without even having to apply for a visa for 6 months. Brazil, I think we're going to maybe test this. You can renew a 3-month visa for another 3 months. And so you can stay in Brazil for 6 months. Colombia, you can renew for 3 months. So you can stay there for 6 months. So there's so many places where you can stay. And we live in Airbnbs, and that is our largest expense, but we are not paying for health insurance because out-of-pocket healthcare is affordable outside the United States. We don't have a car. We don't have utilities. They're included in the Airbnb fees. So you can make it work if it's something that you're interested in. And it's something I love. So let me know if you ever want to hear me talk more about that. All right, let me just wrap it up with a few business things. Okay, let me wrap it up now with a few business things. You have probably been hearing a lot of stuff about AI out there and people talking about it nonstop in terms of both AI search and how you can be found in search engines with AI and AI search engines and all of that, AI, the chat bots and whatnot. And then also using AI tools, and that's probably more of what people are talking about, is using Claude to do things, using the Claude Code and Claude Cowork and agentic AI and just all these the design aspects. There's so many new tools that have come out onto the market in the past 4 to 6 months, and they are advancing so quickly. And it's one of those things where last year I was not really paying much attention to it. I was using some AI tools, but I wasn't really keeping up and maybe using things as soon as they came out. that has changed and shifted in our business. So Priscilla, who's been on the podcast before and works with me as my online business manager, and she does my ads, she works on our done for you funnel service and all of that. She's been just adopting stuff like crazy, and the stuff that she's able to do with Claude Code and Claude Cowork at this point, mainly Claude Code, and I guess just the general Claude chat, in terms of applications like web applications and onboarding. If you purchased our done for you funnel service, you will go through this onboarding that she created completely with Claude Code. And it is what a year ago you would have had to pay to have software that would collect information from clients and have it be organized and all of that. So I think it's really cool that you can now build applications for yourself to do things in your business and have it be exactly the way you want and all of that. Now, all of these things require upkeep and they break. And so it's not perfect by any means, but it's allowing you to build so many cool things, and it's allowing us to move so much more quickly. And that's, I think, the thing that excites me the most, because I see, and I think I've mentioned this, and I've definitely been hearing other people talk about this online in the online business world and all of that. We're seeing courses go by the wayside. People are not wanting to engage in courses as much, buy them, use them, go through them. And I think that really speaks to a few things. First off, that information is abundant online, and it's easier than ever to get information from these LLMs and going to ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and all of that. People don't have a lot of time. I think we're just being crunched in terms of what's going on with the economy and being pushed to our limit in terms of how much money we have and how much time we have. And so sitting through a course and learning something and then having to apply it and not being sure if you're going to be able to apply it correctly and get the result you want, get it in the time that you need it to be done. I just think we're a lot more stressed, and I think our patience is a little less when it comes to, am I going to sit through a course and watch all of this? So I think information is abundant, attention is low, and people just really need things done for them, because we need to be moving so quickly to still be competitive and keeping up with everything that's going on, and showing to our customers that we are still here to help them and we still are valuable. But the way that we show that and the way that we deliver that value is changing. And so I think AI can really come into that. So some of the things that we're doing is we're using AI as we're doing these done for you services. We are still very actively involved as the humans, dictating the strategy, reviewing all of the outputs, prompting. It's not like we are just going and typing your domain into a search into Claude and being like, build a funnel for this person. That would not work. That's not good. So it's based off of our frameworks and all of that, but it's allowing us to just move more quickly. And we're going to be putting out a revamped website service as well that I am still working on very heavily to make sure that it's right and it's doing what I want and giving the features that I want, but using AI to help us deliver websites and do them for you so that you don't have to be learning anything. And so I'll talk about that in another episode and go into that, but that's just like a little preview of what's to come. Some of the other things that I want to be doing are using AI to allow us to help you make edits to your websites faster, other AI tools to help you do your marketing faster. So I'm playing around with some ideas about maybe tools for email writing and email drafting. And because you just heard me talk about how important it is to build your funnel and build your email list, but then you need to actually nurture that list, sell to that list, and that requires you to be emailing people. And so how can I create some tools to help you do that and execute that more quickly and effectively? That isn't a course that you have to sit through, but it's actually getting you to do the work, but it's guided by things that I would have been teaching you anyway in a course, but now it's helping you actually execute and do that thing. That's just some of the stuff we're looking at. Also behind the scenes operationally, we're looking at how can we start leveraging AI tools to make it easier to manage our help desk, because we have a lot of alerts coming in from our different monitoring tools for the websites we support and manage. So we've got all of those alerts, and then we have tickets coming in from clients, and we have outstanding things that we need to be looking at. So how can we have the different AI tools pulling all of that together into a summary for Ian, who is the team member, our developer who manages the help desk? How can we make his job easier and make him more effective and efficient so that he can get to the work he needs to get done and get to without having to have a lot of admin work in the background? And I went to a day of TEDx talks about AI here in Berlin. It was really cool that I was able to actually go to that, because it doesn't align usually that I'm in a place where there's cool stuff happening like that all the time. There's always cool stuff where we're going, but not always those kinds of things. And the talks were just really, really amazing. The speakers were so talented, and I absorbed a lot. It's one of those things where sometimes I don't retain all of the information, and I wish I had taken notes, but they were very fast talks, and I was just trying to process what they were saying in the moment. But one person was talking about the fact that this concern that AI is going to take jobs, and more that AI is taking job tasks. It can't take the entire job. And so I think that it's really important as we look at how can we use AI responsibly, not to replace an entire thing that we don't know about. And that's another topic that I'll talk about later. I don't really think using AI to be your marketing coach or your strategist or your business coach or to advise you on something that you've never done before, I don't think that that is a good use of AI, because it doesn't know all of your scenarios. It's like me going and saying, should I move to Germany, and not giving any context. And it's not going to be ideal. I think it's better when you already know what the task is that needs to be done, or maybe you just know that you have something that's taking you a long time, or that you want to do better and more efficiently. And then how can you use AI tools to help you do that task? And I think you're going to have a higher chance of success. I think it's going to be easier to actually integrate AI into your business in that sense. And just overall, I think it's going to be better. I do think that for AI, we are limited by our imagination only. And that's another thing that I want to be sharing, is just the ways that we are thinking about AI in our business and how we're bringing it into the various things that we do, both in client delivery and services, but also operationally and administratively. Because as soon as you start opening yourself up to all of the possibilities and asking that question of what could I use an AI tool to do, and you see all of those different examples and you see all those different things available to you, then I think it makes it easier to start using it on a daily basis and looking and seeing those opportunities. But I think if you haven't used it a whole lot, you don't know all the use cases yet, then it can feel very overwhelming in terms of how to start approaching it. So that's just a little insight into my brain and what we're doing behind the scenes here, because we're definitely working a lot right now behind the scenes. You're seeing some stuff that we're putting out there, but there's a lot more in the works that I'm very excited about. So continue to stay tuned to my emails that I send out, listening to the podcast so you can be the first one to know. And just one final plug too, that if you have something you want me to talk about and dive into more deeply on the podcast, do a podcast series, do a coaching call themed around it, just send me an email, info@whitneybateson.com, or send me a DM on Instagram. My handle's @WhitneyBateson. And I would love to hear your ideas. I am working on the next episodes of the podcast, so I would love to hear from you and hear what you would like me to cover. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you on the next episode of The Growth Show.